So each and every one of you has the ability to predict the future. If you think hard enough, you are able, with a fair degree of accuracy, to know what's going to happen to you in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years' time. And here's how I know that. At several points in your life, something has happened to you, and you've said to yourself out loud, under your breath, or to yourself, I should have seen this coming. Have you ever said that? I should have seen this coming. In other words, as you look at this thing that happened to your life, you realize now that it was completely obvious. So obvious that you should have seen it coming. So for the next 4 weeks in church, we're going to talk about how we can predict the future. We're going to talk about all the things in life that you should be able to see coming. All right, Judy? Is it good?
For some reason I don't have it. I don't know why.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me. That's good. Can you see me?
You're too thin.
Thanks, Mum. So what we're going to talk about is what you would like life to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. And we're going to talk about how you can understand now what that's going to look like. And the first thing that I want to say about the future is that when we think about the kind of life we'd like to have, say, in 10 years, we all tend to confuse having good intentions with making good decisions. Understand? We all intend to live well. When you think about the kind of life you'd like to be living in 10 years, you intend that you're going to be in an intimate, loving relationship with your partner. You intend that you're going to have sufficient finances to fund your lifestyle. You intend that you're going to be able to have the right health and the right fitness to enjoy your lifestyle. All of our intentions in life are good. Of course they are. No one has bad intentions for the future. We all intend to have a happy tomorrow, and we have a fairly good idea of what a happy tomorrow looks like. If we close our eyes, we can feel the sand under our feet. We can see it. And yet, irrespective of our very good intentions, there is often a weird discrepancy between the future that we intend to have and the decisions we make on a day-to-day basis. Have a look at what Steve Jobs said about this. Steve Jobs said, you know, you can't connect the dots looking forward. We're actually going to prove him wrong in this series on that. But he said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in the future. In other words, he's saying their life is somehow connected. There is a relationship somehow between yesterday and today. And there must also be a relationship between today and tomorrow. And so if you want to make better decisions that will take you to a better tomorrow, you need to understand that life is absolutely linear. That A normally leads to B, and B normally leads to C. And every single time we say to ourselves, I should have seen this coming, we're recognizing, looking back, that the dots are connected. That I am today the sum of where my decisions yesterday took me. And if that's true, then it must also be true going forwards. If the dots connect back, they must also connect to the future. Jesus said, in effect, that in life, it is direction and not intention that determines our destination. The future that we end up with is not the future that we intend to have. It is the future that our choices take us to. So Jesus' biggest sermon was called the Sermon on the Mount. I think Jesus preached this sermon hundreds of times in his 3-year ministry. I think it was his go-to sermon. All of his big ideas were in that sermon. Whenever you hear Jesus quoted today, it's normally something that he said in the Sermon on the Mount. And at the very end of this content-rich sermon, Jesus said something strange. He said, there's no point in your having good Christian intentions. You have to listen to what's right. You have to understand what's right. And then, having listened to it and understood it, you have to make a series of decisions that will take you in a right direction. First sentence up on the screen, please. So Jesus said, friends, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through that. But small is the gate, and narrow is the road that leads to life, and only few find it. Now, every time I read this sentence in the Bible, I find myself, I must confess, wanting to be in the wrong place with the wrong people. And the reason for my wrong wanting is Jesus' use of vocabulary. I don't like the word narrow. I don't like narrow lips. I don't like narrow smiles. And I certainly don't like narrow people. I don't like people whose view on life is as narrow as their experience of it. I don't even like the word narrow. Narrow, narrow, narrow. It sounds horrible on the tongue. On the other hand, I rather enjoy the word broad. I like broad smiles. I like people with broad minds. I like people who can think differently and openly, people whose view on life is wide and inclusive. So the idea here then is troubling. Jesus is saying that listening to what's right and understanding what's right is akin to choosing between two ways. One way that you like, one way that you're comfortable with, and another way that you don't like and that you're uncomfortable with. So for Jesus, listening to what's right places you, as it were, in Robert Frost's poem, two roads diverged in a wood, and sorry I could not travel both, there a lonely traveller there I stood, right? For Jesus, life is a road to be travelled. And seeing as how you can only live one life, you cannot therefore travel all possible roads. And so therefore, you must choose. And it is, of course, empowering to believe that you can choose. To get it into the head that you can choose your future. To also, uncomfortable though the thought may be, get it into the head that the life you have today, to an extent, is the life you've chosen. That is an empowering thought. So what Jesus is saying here then is that there should be a close relationship between what you intend and what you decide. Your good Christian intentions should be demonstrated in good Christian decisions. And so he gives this rather pointed warning. He says, hey guys, I know that you like what's right. I know that this sermon of mine that I've preached has been awesome and it's content rich and you've all loved it and I know you all want it. And I know that liking it and wanting it gives you certain assumptions. You assume that intending what's right gives you a right life. You assume that you're going to go to heaven in the future and all that stuff. And so you need to know, however, that sometimes life can take you where you don't intend to go. And so the imagery about the broad gate and the broad road with lots of people travelling on it is Jesus' way of saying, guys, sometimes normal is insane. Sometimes what everyone else is doing is the stupid thing to do. When he talks about a large road leading to destruction, he's saying, I just want you to know that if you're serious about this faith thing, you need to understand that sometimes it's going to feel as though you're swimming against the current. And if you take faith seriously and life seriously, there's going to be moments where you look and feel stupid. And in those moments, you won't have the comfort of the crowd. You'll be alone wondering why you're making all these choices that don't make sense to anyone else except to you. To say yes to Jesus, and also to say yes to good sense, to say yes to a better tomorrow, is also to say no 1,000 times. And each no will hurt you. For example, to say yes to Jesus' teaching on forgiveness means saying no to bitterness and revenge. It means saying no to the right to hold on to thinking you should have had a better past. To say yes to Jesus' teaching on generosity means saying no to selfishness and greed. To be a person who says yes to what Jesus says about lust means saying no to the pleasures that lust gives. Do you understand? The yes that we give to Jesus leads to the saying of 1,000 no's and 1,000 denials and 1,000 pains. And that's not just true in faith, that is also true in life. So pretty soon this guy will help the Leafs win the Stanley Cup. I don't know if that's an accurate prediction of the future or not. But I presume, certainly, that at some earlier point in his life, this young man said yes to his ambition of playing in the NHL. But that yes did not come on its own. That simple yes led him to saying no to lots of other things. No to laziness. No to Big Mac and fries. No to smoking. No to drugs. No to being out all night partying, right? In setting out to be this thing, he had to say no to all these other things. This is the cost of the future. Every affirmation and intention in life must always be backed up by 1,000 denials and 1,000 rejections. One yes to a better tomorrow can lead to the saying of 1,000 no's. To get to where you want to go, you have to say no to all the things that won't get you there. This is why Jesus says the way is narrow. The way is difficult. It's small. It's only found by a few. In the Bible, we never get the idea that you accidentally end up in heaven. And nor in life must we think that we accidentally end up with the future of our dreams. Next sentence, Jesus says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man. So what is a wise man in this sentence? The wise man is the man who understands that life is connected. That the past is connected to the present, and the present is connected to the future. The wise person understands that your current direction is the only reliable indicator of your future destination. No one cares what your intentions are. No one. It doesn't work that way. And you know, here's what's weird about this, right? This stuff is so obvious in other people. So when your friend talks to you about a relationship she's having with a married colleague, it's so frustrating to you to listen to her talk because to you the destination is obvious, isn't it? To you, listening to her story is like watching a train wreck happen in slow motion and you're powerless to do anything about it. When your teenager falls in with a questionable crowd and pays more attention to the PlayStation than to his or her grades, you get worried. Because you understand that if they stay on that path that they're currently on, that path does not lead to a good place. But the wise person gets it. The wise person understands that what I do today and the life I end up with tomorrow are connected. Notice also this in this sentence. Notice it. The wise man built his house. Have you ever built anything? I've like a house or stuff. I've never done it, but I've seen on YouTube and that, so I feel qualified to talk about this. So those of you who've built a house or built a business or built, I don't know what people build, what did it take? It took
Money.
money.
Time.
More important than money, it took time, right? Took a long, long time. Let me say something you won't like. Sorry, let me say something else you won't like. Do you know what a good life takes? It takes work. And there are no fixes for your problems. I realize complaining about our culture nowadays makes me sound old. But nowadays everyone wants a solution. And they want the solution to be quick. Too fat, take a pill. Join another diet, join another support group, there's the solution. Too poor, here's the solution. Buy a lottery ticket. Sell soap, make jewelry. Too unhappy, here's the solution. Go see a therapist. Take a pill. Do whatever. Listen, get this into your head. In life, there are no solutions. There are only directions. When your friend invites you around to their house and you got lost, you don't phone them up and say, "Hey, I'm lost, can you give me a solution?" You ask for a direction. Jesus, to my knowledge, did not offer solutions. He offered directions. He asked people to become his followers. To take a series of steps day after day after day after day that would start them off here and would end up there. And it all takes time and repetition and discipline and sacrifice. And the house in this sentence is not a house. It is a metaphor for a life. The wise man builds a life, understanding that it takes time and that the little decisions today affect life tomorrow. Then Jesus says soberly, "But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat, and it fell with a crash." So Jesus ends his sermon with bad news. And I don't like to admit this sort of thing in church, but there are points in life at which there are no returns. Sometimes in life you get yourself into trouble and you only have two options and they're both horrible. And if you could go back 10 years, then you would have 15 options and 13 of them would be awesome. But now there's only two and they're nasty. If you're 74, it's probably too late to start thinking about saving for retirement. But no. That's not a joke. But when you were in your 20s, people spoke to you and said, hey, you should save for your retirement. But now it's, Colonel Sanders pulled it off. Colonel Sanders starts KFC in his retirement. So that was awesome. So it's not impossible. It's just difficult. If you're pregnant, it's probably too late to think, do I love him? Do you know what I mean? Go back 6 months, there were other options. But when you go through life carelessly and you don't think things are connected, eventually you get to a place where the only thing you can fix your life with is a time machine. And if you get your hands on one of them, let me in on it. The fool thinks that now is now and tomorrow is tomorrow. But the smart man gets the connection between the two. Now, I know, sometimes stuff happens that we could not have foreseen. Thankfully, we could not have foreseen it. Maybe there's things in our future we don't want to know about today. Life has a way of being cruel and surprising. That can work for you and can work against you. But generally, as a principle, this applies. Life is connected. And I believe, and as a church we believe, that God wants to lead us to the living of a better life, a life that works. Look at what the psalmist says. I think that when we realize that our life isn't working, I think that's a beautiful moment. I think it's a beautiful moment where we look at where our choices have taken us and where we throw up our hands and say, this is horrible. Need to do something different. I think that's a beautiful moment. And I believe that in that moment, God is with us. The psalmist says, God restores my soul. I like the word restore, because it's the opposite of how you feel about life when you've made a series of bad decisions. When you've made a series of bad decisions and you realize it, you feel like you've lost something. You've lost your way, you've lost yourself, you've lost your integrity. And the word soul that he uses in this sentence is a word in the Bible that simply means your life. And when your decisions take you to a place of fear and of disaster, your whole life aches. From the tip of your toes to the top of your head. And in the experience of this writer, here is what God does. He restores what we've lost. He fixes what we thought was broken forever and leads us in paths, not solutions, paths of righteousness. Do you know how to overcome a long series of bad decisions? Just start making a long series of better decisions. There's no easy answers. There's no pills. There's no counseling. There's no therapy. There's no prayer that can do for you what you need to do for you. Just make a series of better decisions. Do you know what Christianity was called before they started calling it Christianity? Do you know what it was called? The Way. The year 35, 40 AD, Christianity was called the Way, the path, the journey. The thing we do every day, we follow, we make decisions, we make good choices, and they all seem so little, but they add up to something big. Just take good steps, and it leads to a good place. So here's 4 things we should probably take home from this. Number 1, you've got to take action. Either positively or negatively. Take action. Feeling bad about your life doesn't fix your life. Complaining about your situation will not aid your situation. Take some action. The future loves action. Success loves movement. Do something. Start taking a series of better decisions. Secondly, embrace sacrifice. If there's something you have to give up now to have a better future tomorrow, that's going to require sacrifice. Giving something up, ending something, stopping something, saying no to something. Thirdly, embarrassment. When your family and your friends see you making different decisions, they evaluate you on what you're doing now, but you're not acting on now, you're acting on the future. For you, the future is now. You're responding to tomorrow. And in some cases, your friends won't understand that. In some cases, you can't even talk about it because it's personal. But you need to make changes now that will make a better tomorrow for you. And it can be embarrassing because they don't understand. And fourthly, think about the relief. What can you do now and keep doing that will cause you to be very relieved in 10 years' time? What could you do now that will cause you to say at some point in the future, I am so glad I did that. I'm so glad I gave that up. I'm so glad I made that decision. So glad I took that step. It made all the difference. Some of us are making decisions now that are leading us to a future of pain. Some of us are making decisions now that are leading us to a future of joy and happiness. Think about tomorrow. Think about where you're going. And if you keep doing what you're doing, where it's going to end up. More on this next week. Let me say a quick prayer and then we'll go. Our Heavenly Father, you ask us in your word to love others as we love ourselves. And in moments like this, we realize that maybe we haven't been loving ourselves enough. That our decisions have been too sloppy, too thoughtless, too careless. That we are kind of stumbling through life, not really thinking about what we're doing or where it's going. And so we ask that this week and in the weeks ahead you will cause us to see things that we've been ignoring, to hear things that we should have been hearing, to get rid of things that we should get rid of, and to start things that we've been putting off for too long. Help us to live better, to do better, and to make better choices, and to follow your good steps through this complicated life. Be with us, we pray, through Christ our Lord.